Sox fans, welcome back to Hot Takes and Heaters. He's Danny Miller. I'm Nick Murawski. We are the MLB-centric version of all things FutureSox. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Find us, FutureSox, that is, on Twitter X at FutureSox. Got so much great content. And really, let's be honest, that's what we're all looking forward to, is the future. The future, we don't know exactly when things will arrive. Ozzie Guillen had an interesting take recently on when they might be raising a division championship, but we are very future focused. However, here at Hot Takes and Heaters, we have the wonderful task of chopping up all things major league level. Chicago White Sox, they're 31-101 a record. So jump in the comments. Sox game was suspended after 4 pitches because of a crazy unforeseen storm. They'll pick that up as a doubleheader on Wednesday. So we're talking all things White Sox as much as we can stomach. Danny Miller, great to be with you once again, buddy.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. First off, let me just start by apologizing that we weren't able to go last week. I had some last minute things come up, but we're here this week. And like you say, it's a pleasure to see your mustachioed face this evening on my computer screen.
Yeah.
Hopefully these storms don't play any havoc with our show tonight, because I was just informed that my yard is flooding like nobody's business. And so far the house is good. So
good.
Let's keep those fingers crossed and, tots and pears all in hand. Speaking of tots and pears, I was just telling you before the show, man. It's crazy happenings here the last couple of days.
Man,
do you
want to open up about it, or do you just want to keep that private?
No, let's get it out there, man. Like,
okay.
I want to talk about it because I'm
right.
Tomorrow I am venturing to Sin City for a week, aka Las Vegas, Nevada. And as I'm preparing today, I get a phone call from the doc after doing some lab work yesterday. Got some blood work done, and so they call me back and they tell me, hey, you got some abnormal liver enzymes. Like, did you fast beforehand? And I was like, well, I did, but kind of ate like a pig the day before. Like, well, your blood sugar's a little up, your triglycerides are high, you get some, but your liver enzymes are a little out of whack. We want to give you an ultrasound. And I told him, I said, well, I'm flying to Vegas tomorrow. And she was like, well, doc doesn't want you to drink a whole lot, but you're going to Vegas for a week. Like, I don't expect you not to. So just take it easy. And I was like, oh, all right, I can do that.
Wow.
But then, I got another phone call saying that I had abnormal EKG results from the same doctor's office. And I went, wait a minute. I haven't had an EKG since March. So yeah. They want me to see a cardiologist now. I said, but wait a minute, this came back in March. What are you talking about? I went under the knife to have my knee fixed in April. About a month before. Or a month after the EKG. So yeah, crazy stuff going on, man. I feel fine. Danny, I'm still as active as ever, and everything feels good.
Still as active as ever.
I don't feel bad in any way, shape, or form. Good. So we'll see what happens. And you bet your ass, I'm gonna at least maybe not get too crazy, but I'm gonna have some cocktails while I'm in Vegas. So
enjoy your time in Vegas.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm not trying to make light of this situation, but I think all of us as Sox fans should go see a cardiologist in the near future.
I blame it on the Sox. That's what it is. I had this EKG in March.
Yeah.
And I saw the roster moves and the construction of the roster, and that was it, man. Threw everything on.
Well, at that
I have
point,
been perfectly normal up until that point.
So I'm trying to figure out when was the timing of the 74 prediction, because you seem to be in good shape at that point when you were thinking 74 wins. I would assume your EKG was in a good spot. So maybe that was your readings were after the 7 when things started to crystallize. Perhaps, I don't know.
Yeah, it's that's a good call, man. I'm gonna have to dig a little bit deeper into that, but so we're gonna eat a little bit healthier around here, and make sure we keep our triglycerides and our electrolytes in check. And I've even gone out and decided to get myself a little vape to help me cut back
Well,
on the cigarettes.
Howard's in the chat, and Howard said you better quit smoking, Danny. I mean, we might
Yeah.
have to rename the show. See, I had a feeling this was going to happen. I can sometimes, egg people on a little bit into certain habits that they have, and I think I tried to get you to smoke 3 cigarettes at a time one point, and that's just on me, and I apologize for that. I should have never
It
even
is
gone
not on
down
you,
that road.
brother.
Okay,
This White Sox team is more than enough to get me going in that direction.
all right.
But
Well,
yeah, we're gonna do the vape thing for a little bit
okay,
and try to cut back as much as possible and even quit here shortly. But yeah, it's all in the works. It's all part of the plan. And again, I'm not super concerned. I think it
okay,
might just be a blip on the radar here and pretty much all accounts. But we'll see
okay.
as things go.
All right. Well, keep us posted. It's hearing all that news can be very disconcerting, especially erratic levels, and then they're telling you that this is from an EKG from March and all that kind of stuff. So enjoy your time, just relax in Vegas, and think about us. Hopefully, with some cooler temps here in the Chicagoland area. I mean, the game got
Yeah, you'll be
suspended.
cooler. I'm looking at 100 degrees plus all week. I was looking at the
Well,
weather.
dry out there.
Oh,
Dry.
it's a
I
dry
mean,
heat. I
yeah.
love when people say that. It's a
I
dry heat.
mean, it's this stuff we're dealing with here in the Chicagoland area. I can't imagine if they were to go ahead and play tonight. I mean, it of course evening sunset, but it was still intense. The heat and humidity just thick here in the Chicago area. So of course the game didn't go on, but they're going to play this doubleheader. Crochet started the game. He threw 4 pitches. I mean, does Crochet, go ahead and pitch tomorrow on Wednesday?
Yeah, I don't see why not. But then again, I'm not part of this White Sox coaching staff that seems to have a mind of its own and follows exactly zero rules as far as the book is concerned. So, I don't know, man. When people say go by the book, I don't know if the White Sox got that book or any of the memorandums to it. So,
Yeah, they don't quite. It doesn't seem, for a lot of different reasons, they do. As we record here on Tuesday night, August 27th, Chicago White Sox over 70 games under 500. The race to 100 loss that met them on August 25th, which is just astounding. I mean, over 100 years, right? The quickest to 100 losses, maybe the 1916 Phillies. Did I read that correct? I mean, it seems like every week there's a new record, Danny, that the Sox are achieving for all the wrong reasons. And this time it's, of course, the seasonal losses as we're screaming towards that 120. The worst team in record wise, White Sox history, 1970, when they had 106 losses. We're going to get there. We're going to get past that probably by week's end. They have now had back-to-back 100-loss seasons. Of course, last year losing 101 in 2023. This is the first time in franchise history, that rich franchise history, where they're going to be celebrating 125 years next season. They want you to commit to that. First time in franchise history, they've gone back-to-back seasons with 100 or more losses. So what a time to be alive, as I like to say, Danny.
yeah, and I feel like you're leading me into one of our talking points here. And what the White Sox have recently come out with and
Yeah.
what they're going to do to entice their fans. But I'll let you bring that out. But yeah, man, 100 losses back to back. And, you got to be honest. We have to be honest with ourselves. Like everybody was like, are they going to be that worst team? Maybe a month and a half ago. They had a couple of wins sprinkled in and everybody was like, whoa, maybe they eke it out to where they're not the absolute worst record in baseball ever. But yeah, now it's looking like they're gonna blow that out of the water by the time
Yeah.
the end of the season comes
Yeah.
along. Like it's not gonna be within a game or two. Like well, I don't know, man. It seems like they're gonna go down the toilet quick, but Yeah, man.
Yeah,
I'm feeling pretty awful about this.
yeah. I just I don't know. Like, there's a laundry list, right, of things
WTL.
that need to be addressed immediately. There are so many issues, not just roster, but of course you're looking at a brand new manager, and what coaches that manager is going to be allowed to bring onto the staff. I absolutely think Chris Getz is, I don't think he was the right the right GM decision way back as we celebrate about the 1 year anniversary that Hahn and Williams were let go. He wasn't the right guy, tasked with so many critical decisions as a first time GM. You know, different assets that have to be moved, and you got to hit on those assets because we're not going to get better through free agency and spending money. Going to lean on a lot of those young arms and anything else we have in the system. So Cease had to, that deal had to go right. Whatever money, whatever allotted money he did have, he had to spend it wisely. And I think the Fetty thing was a smart deal. I don't think we got at all what we needed to get back, but we've kind of gone over that. Moves that he's made, like Senzel, that is now DFA. There's been a couple others, Danny, that real head scratchers. Like, what are you doing, Getz? Who are these people you're bringing in? What is the purpose of bringing these people in and taking away at bats and playing time for serious contenders for the future? Okay, so he gets, I think, man, I'm not very favorable on what his first year has on the job has been like. Wasn't really impressed with the trade deadline and going into the offseason with all of these different things you've got to get lined up. Now you've also got these assets in Crochet and Robert Jr. And are you going to get that right? I mean, those you have to. You can't miss on that. And you have to get a ton back.
It's difficult to trust that they will.
I know.
Because if you look at, like you said, you look at the return on the Cease trade, where okay, maybe it's a little too early to judge. That there's some time for that to come around, and we might not see whether or not that trade works out. But so far, it hasn't looked awesome to this point. Especially when you've got Cease going out and throwing a no hitter, and it's just been absolutely on fire. And then you look at the 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 Fetty trade, and that hasn't really seemed to kind of make its way through right now. But the only thing we're seeing from the Fetty trade right now is Vargas. Everybody else that was moved in that trade was younger. So again, it's going to be a couple years before we know anything. But none of them feel really great. Like it says in the chat here, Clutch Hattrick says if you take out the signing Fetty, not trading Fetty, but signing him to his original contract, what certified good move has gets made? And the answer to that really is that I don't think we can certify anything. There's room for some of those trades to be good in the future, but we're not anywhere close to finding that out and figuring it out. And so far, they just don't feel great to me. And that's really disappointing. We're putting a lot of trust in a guy who's never done this before, who was a student of the last regime, worked under the two guys that were fired just because he could supposedly turn this thing around quicker than anybody else. It just doesn't feel like a great move at all.
Yeah, I can you credit Getz with bringing Bannister in and bringing Barfield in? I mean, now we're talking about executive moves and coaches, and I don't even know the real effect of those individuals right now, and I don't know when we might. But in terms of players, it's tough for me to pinpoint anything beyond Fetty, which was a good move. He was solid. Just I felt a little underwhelmed by the return. So that's a huge offseason coming up in a month's time. We're winding down, and you just at this point, okay, you could be looking at developmental things this last month, which we can talk a little bit about. But my mind starts going to that checklist, and I think Trey had put it in the chat. All of those things that need to be done, and it just feels like it's on and on and on. And and then you say to yourself as a fan, wow, we feel like miles and miles away.
Well, you know, here's my thing. I hate to, and I've been known to do it. It's something that I need to work on, but I hate to have that knee jerk reaction, right? Like I don't want to say that Drew Thorpe isn't going to be an absolute stud. I don't want to say that Miguel Vargas isn't going to work out. I don't want to say that any of these guys that we've picked up in any of these moves aren't going to work out, because everything right now, we're looking at a cup of coffee from all of these guys, right? You know, it's just like you say, when there's there's miles to go before we know, and then it feels like there's other teams that are just miles ahead of what Chris Getz has done and what can do. And yeah, thank you, Nian. I am a bit of a knee jerker sometimes. Like I said, a lot of you guys don't hear in the show and in the chat, don't get the opportunity to see some of my real knee jerk reactions, because I bounce a lot of that off of Ian and Nick here and some of the other guys at FutureSox before I go ahead and go public with a lot of it. So, but yeah, man, I mean, I don't want to poo poo on any of that. Like, these guys are all still young, right? And still have, what seems like some time to hit their peak.
Danny, what about Lenine Sosa? He's cooled off. We've talked not a ton on Lenine Sosa, but I feel like an appropriate amount when he has gotten some playing time and he's, swung the bat more than serviceable with the bat. I don't think he's ever really been scorching. He's one of those guys that I would love for the White Sox to figure out a plan for Lenine Sosa, whether that's in a White Sox uniform or beyond. I feel like the Sox over the years, and they still kind of do it, right, is they hold on to guys. They kind of wallow in a, I don't know what to do with this person. We're just gonna, we're gonna play him at different spots. We're gonna hold on to him. I guess your assessment of Lenine Sosa, can you give a plan from your fan perspective of, you have a definite thing that you want the White Sox to do? Is he even worth, truly investing in? Is he somebody that you want to see, just for them to go all in and say, Lenine Sosa, you're in this position and this is what we want moving forward?
I think that's what Lenine Sosa needs. I think Lenine Sosa needs that vote of confidence and say, here it is, battle it out. And you have zero worries about having to, be sent down or, sit on the bench and rot while somebody else plays the position you should be in. The problem is I think it should have been done before the All-Star break this year. It should have just been given to him. It's yours until the end of the season. Go battle. And I feel like now maybe the time is kind of past for him to be able to get that opportunity where they say, just go out and do your thing, because that's how it's always been for him. Every level, it takes him a long time to adjust, but once he does, he manages. But that's with every single day playing time, not this, okay, we gave you 2-3 weeks straight. Now we're going to sit you down for a little bit. Or we're going to send you back, and then we're going to recall you, and then we're going to give you a month, and we're going to send you back. And everybody's like, well, he got a month. He got a lot of playing time. He got a lot of playing time that was broken up, and he's never really gotten the opportunity to get comfortable, because there's always somebody lurking and looming the way the White Sox work. And I just don't know that I don't know that he'll ever get the opportunity. And it's very possible that I've been wrong on him since they got him. I've been high on him for a very long time. He could very well be a bust. I don't know. Oh, Ian's. Oh my God! See, this is where the show goes off the rails, and I have a hard time. I want to start burning. As Ian's talking about how we need to see Jacob Amaya. Like, why? So we're picking up. Granted, he's a young, 24, 25-year-old out of the Dodgers system or whatever. But like, I don't need to see another second baseman or shortstop or whatever he is. We have guys that have higher ceilings than this guy everywhere in the organization. Why are we doing this? And we're sending him right to the 26, man, putting him on the major league roster because you have to at this point. right? There's no moving things around on for a guy when you sign him off of waivers, claiming him off waivers, he's got to immediately go on your 26 man at this point in the season. So why are we doing this? We're literally taking playing time away from guys that we've been waiting to give playing time to. And this is the perfect opportunity during this really, really bad loss season to do that. And now we're, oh, you know what? You're not going to get that opportunity because we're going to pick up this other dude. So I don't know what they're doing, but yeah, I could very well be wrong about Sosa from the very beginning.
Yeah, I don't quite know what they're doing either, and that's the troubling part of all this. It's one thing to have a good sense as a fan of what they're doing, not necessarily like, hey, this is guaranteed to work, but as a fan to buy into season tickets, buy into spending money, your time, your investment in this team, not just because you always do it, and you live blocks to the stadium and it's, this is just part of your, I get that, man. I get it. When it's part of your life and going to games is, you don't think much of it. You're gonna do it and invest no matter what. That's definitely a pocket of fans, and you do what you want to do. I'm not judging anybody. If that's how you want to do it, that's great. If you want to see it live and that makes you happy, that's wonderful. But I think the Sox as an organization, they're running out of those types of people. Okay, they need to find new ways to tap in. Where am I going to get these younger fans investing? Where am I going to get these people that are excited about this team moving forward to bring in money? I don't know where that is, and tapping into new fans right now has got to be almost nearly impossible because about a year ago, you heard from Getz and you heard from Reinsdorf. By the way, where's he been at? Where's he at right now? No
Same
surprise
place
there.
he always is. He's
Yeah,
hiding in
exactly.
the ivory tower,
Yeah.
Avoiding the media.
You heard a year ago that, I think we can kind of flip things around, make a couple moves here and there, and it shouldn't be, a long, extensive rebuild. And of course, the talk about the division, and then Getz walked all of that stuff back, and here we are, kind of really. I'm scratching my head, like I don't know about a lot of these guys. I mean, Andrew Vaughn, what's your value to the White Sox? Is that a guy that they're really going to continue to invest in beyond this season? And I'm not just talking contractually, but seriously, looking themselves in the mirror as an organization. Yeah, we have to have this guy. And there's so many of those, right? I mean, when this season is over and we say goodbye to not only Moncada and, a handful of others, but, the other just fringe guys, the rentals, this is going to be looking like such a skeletal of a team, Danny.
Yeah, no, and when you bring up guys like Vaughn and any number of other guys that you're wondering what the future of these, past supposed superstars were, supposed to be during the heart of the competitive window. Guys like Vaughn, he's going to have some competition come spring if they don't find a trade partner for him or just decide to cut bait with him. You look at what Elko's been doing, especially since he's gone to AAA. And he's a better defender than Vaughn, and he's taller and he's a bigger target. There's at the very least going to be some competition come spring for him. And if you're the White Sox, if you're Chris Getz, if you're whoever the new manager is, you have to take consideration in those kinds of things. You can't just continue to roll out Sheets and Vaughn every year, especially when any fan with half a brain is going, what are these guys doing right now? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We're moving into spring and they're still talking about them. The last thing I want to hear is the typical spring rhetoric of, well, Sheets lost 10 pounds of fat, but he gained 20 pounds of muscle, and he's been in the best shape he's ever been in his life. Andrew Vaughn's I don't know, wearing wedges and has grown 2 inches. and he's in the best shape. It was like, he's got some lifts on or whatever.
No, I absolutely, I don't want to hear another Sheets article about who he's been working with and what type of swing approach he has. I'm done. I am absolutely done hearing anything about Gavin Sheets. But honestly, there's so many of those types of guys that it's just I'm tired of the talk. I'm tired of it. We discuss it every offseason. It's like stop with the talk. But in a era where it's so muddied and clouded and I don't know where this White Sox team is going. You almost feel defeated as a fan and just think, who cares? Just stick around, I guess. It's not like they're doing anything anyway. At least I'm familiar with who you are and how horrible you can be. I don't have to get, used to a new face. But before I go any further, Clutch brought something up in the chat, and I did see it on social media on Twitter X about there was a photo. I think it was a couple fans. I think this was real and legit. I don't know, but at least this was the testimony. A couple of fans had shirts on that said, I think it was, I don't like our team. Was that it? That statement from Chris Gatz, and it had like the picture of the exploding scoreboard. I don't like our team. I think that's what I saw. And it was a couple of fans. And according to their post, they were told by security to cover up the shirt because I don't know, whoever's watching the game is not going to be happy with it. So they had to button up their jersey that they had on over the shirt. If that's real, what another just chapter in the thin-skinned book of the Chicago White Sox security, and everybody works in that damn organization.
Well, I mean, there's always that disclaimer in just about any business you go into where we can refuse the right to, give our business to basically whoever we want to, right? And I'm pretty sure that is in your ticket contract when you buy a ticket. They can refuse the right to allow entry to anyone or whatever for whatever. But we're also talking about it's a t-shirt. There's no cussing on it. There's nothing derogatory on it. That's just like you say, thin-skinned. We don't want to hear or see it. That almost feels like a violation of constitutional rights. Your free speech. When I'm not inciting a riot. I am not using any kind of profanity. I'm not doing anything that should even bother a child at this point. You know what I mean? Like it just says, I don't like this. I don't like our team. And it's got an exploding scoreboard on it. That's pretty childish. Yeah. And it says a lot about what the organization feels. They obviously, it either says they don't feel the same way about what direction this team is going in, or, they're just too embarrassed to even deal with it. And who knows, they might just say, you know what, we're not going to do anything with it because nobody shows up. We're not going to do anything to change until you do.
Yeah. It's
except for maybe give somebody, we'll give a handful of fans 10% off their tickets next year.
Oh, give me a break. I'll get to that in just a moment. We might have covered a little bit of it last time, but thank you, Peyton. Appreciate it, and appreciate anytime that we can reference the legend, the White Sox legend, Jim Thome. I take a chance at it because he did give Gavin Sheets some hitting lessons, and he did go one-on-one with Sheets in the offseason, especially in Arizona. And now the legend, Jim Thome, is all in on Grady Sizemore and talking up Grady Sizemore. And there was a Scott Merkin blurb this past week. And Jim Thome was singing the praises of Grady Sizemore and what kind of leader he was. And, essentially that the Sox almost would be, he didn't say this, but I'm paraphrasing in a way, almost fools, to not remove the interim label, and just hand this managerial job to Grady Sizemore. Chicago Crane's Business article in there about how this could be Grady's time, if he shows some life and gets this team to really I guess look like a completely different team the last month, which I find it hard to believe. I think Sizemore might be 3-12 as interim manager, and things have really gone downhill after that electric double-digit run win over the Yankees. It feels like forever ago. So, you had players wearing Grady Sizemore shirts. That's cute. They want to back this guy that maybe they feel connected to. But come on, man. We got to do better than Grady Sizemore.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Greedy. I'll say this. I have to respect a guy who had to reach out to a friend just to get back into the game of baseball. He takes a $15 an hour minimum wage intern job just to make his way back in, because there was no other way to get him in to an organization. And then fast forward to the beginning of this season, and the White Sox hire him on as a coach and undesignated coach. It was just like his title was just coach. Didn't say what kind of coach or where he was at. And and then again, fast forward to August here, and he's all of a sudden interim manager of the White Sox. Now, Jim Thome can sing his praises all he wants, and the players seem to love him more than any other coach that we've had in the last couple of years, and that's all fine and dandy. I think we can respect Grady Sizemore for who he is and what he does, and the feel of this team right now is definitely better than it was under Pedro, whether or not they're winning. But to go out and say anything other than okay, we'll interview him next year for the job, we'll do our due diligence, we'll do the right thing and just give him an interview. But like they said, say he's a shoe-in, and really fight for him to be the job, the manager, to get the job of manager next season after this. I think that's going out on a ledge, man. I mean, you're really pushing especially when we know now there's going to be a couple of at least a few managers with some winning experience in their background. So yeah, I don't know. I'll give it to Grady though. I mean, he comes out and he says all the right things. He's a great media guy. He's good in front of the camera after these losses. He says all the right things about his players. He has that same look, whether it's a win or a loss. So you can never tell what he's feeling.
Yeah.
But I respect the guy for doing what he's doing, but do I think he's the next manager? No.
Sox he's playing with house money. The Sox are going nowhere. He looks now he's getting good graces with Jerry, right? Because he's taken the fall in a way. Going through this, he'll be the man. He'll be the man in charge when they do break the record in terms of losses. He gets to throw this on his resume if it means anything, honestly. And again, if you get in good with Jerry, you've got kind of a gig for life. And so if they love Grady and he's made a connection with these players, a quarter of these players, maybe a half of these players, probably more, are going to be gone. So whatever kind of connection you make with them, they're going to be out the door. But Matthew asked, and I kept it up in the chat here because we revisit this quite a bit. Do you think Sox Fest gets canceled if the 2024 Sox break the all-time loss record this year? And I feel like it's such with the way how thin-skinned this organization is, I sadly wouldn't be surprised if they just say, you know what, we're not going to do
it isn't, I think it ought to be, because I mean, when we talk about pitchforks and torches in years past, like people might actually show up with pitchforks and torches.
Well, okay, so
not metaphorically, again, they might really show up with pitchforks and torches to this thing if there's no moves made
here. But Danny, devil's advocate, it's the 20th anniversary of the 05 team. Is that,
who cares?
Could that mask the stench of what just happened? Do you think people will forget a little bit during the offseason? I had this conversation with Pat on Good Guys Talk Back recently, at least a version of it, that if the Bears catch fire, if the Chicago Bears are everything that we were hoping and think that they could be, and Caleb Williams is the guy, and here we go. Again,
do it.
Against doctor's orders. Danny firing up a heater here. If the Bears, get everyone to forget about what summer baseball was, about the White Sox, and here's Sox Fest in late January, football playoffs. I'm trying to create some sort of narrative here where maybe Sox fans are like, I was so angry. I was absolutely livid for a while there. I've cooled off. Bears are doing well. My focus is on that. I'm just here for the '05, anniversary. Do you think that there's a way that, I don't know, you'd have less of the pitchfork at that point in late January?
You know what? I can't speak for the rest of the fan base, but for me, no,
Okay.
absolutely not. And I got to think about it from a perspective of like we talked about earlier in the show, when you're talking about bringing in, a younger, new fan base, you've got to replenish the fan base that it's just been beaten to death with this horrible White Sox team for so long. And we see it when you see so many season ticket holders giving up their seats over the last couple of seasons, and the White Sox basically begging for people to come back. They've got all their ticket reps reaching out constantly. Hey, we got a deal here and a deal there, and we're finding new giveaways throughout the season just to get butts in the stands. And you know, I just don't think that. How do you sell this team to the younger fans that are coming up?
Like, who are
Because
your players?
anybody's
Who are your
who
superstars that you're attaching to as a young fan? Where's
Well,
your
right
hope as a
now,
young
anybody
fan?
that's younger than like 13 or 14 years old probably doesn't even remember the 2005 White Sox.
And
They're 15 or 16 years old
if you are
even.
looking to, if you're trying as a parent and you want to get your kids into the Chicago White Sox, and it's not organic, it's not natural because maybe there isn't a long history in terms of fandom. And it's a pretty expensive ticket. It's a whole day, concessions, parking, everything. And you've got more exciting options going on. I'm sorry. It's going to take a further back seat than it already is. Why am I going to try to get my kids into this? It's a miserable team, poorly run organization. I feel like it's for the people that are so ingrained, like you and I, and so many fine folks that, tune in weekly. They're diehards all over the place, and for whatever reason they are a diehard or why they are a diehard, that's their business. But we are there, but I often find that to be multi-generational,
Right.
usually. Or there's a great story of when they were young and they grew up a Sox fan, a certain player or whatever. Right now, this time period we're in, and that's where Sox Fest is so great because you can put the team on display and hype up the team, as spring is coming. You've got obviously the Cactus League play, and then you've got the season unfolding, and we're all in January in Chicago. Like, I can't wait for baseball. It's a great time to advertise your product, get your product out there. But I really think if there is still a Sox Fest, it's simply going to be celebrating something of the past, 20 years of the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, for folks like you and I mean, sure, it would be great to go to a fest after not having one for the last few years and see those guys and reminisce about, I don't think anybody that was old enough to remember it doesn't remember exactly where they were when the White Sox swept in the World Series, and had one of the best playoff postseasons in the history of the game. And that's all fine and dandy, but the other part of it is what does it do for me? I see some of these guys, they're out doing card and book signings and stuff. They're doing meet and greets at a Benny's,
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
other month. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so what is Sox Fest doing for me? AJ's on a podcast with,
Mhm.
3 or 4 other major leaguers on any given time at any given time. And he's speaking his mind. And, I don't know. It's a cool thought. It's a nice way to remember when times were better, but does it really move the needle? For me, it not for me as a Sox fan, it doesn't. Like, it's cool, but yeah, I mean, I'm at the point like I've been, for the last few years. They have to show me something because Sox Fest is one weekend. We've got a whole, basically 9 months of baseball between spring training, Cactus League, and then the regular season, where I need to see more. I need to have more than just one weekend of excitement. You know what I mean?
I absolutely do. And I'm trying to think where that excitement is going to come from. Where is that hope going to come from besides, some of the individuals that already discussed, whether it's your Hagen Smith or whether it's your Schultz or, Montgomery, if you want to put him in there,
Like
guys that
Trey said in the chat a little while ago. Thank you, by the way, Trey, for the tip that
yeah.
he expects Benintendi to be fully healthy by
Oh,
February
sure.
of next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Just rested, ready to go. You've got guys that you might not see in 2025. Again, it's very similar to 2017, 2018,
Thanks for checking in, referee, by the way.
when it was,
Have a good night.
hey, we just don't have a lot at the major league level. However, just don't pay attention to this, what's going on at 35th and Shields. Look further past, invest in this team because, of what's coming up the pipeline. I don't know if there's enough there to really get me going. I mean, I still am waiting for bats. I mean, where is the offense coming from? We could have lights out pitching. We are scoring 0 runs. We have 0 offense right now. How are the bats? How is the offense coming? Do you have any idea, Danny?
No, I mean, there's whispers that the White Sox might go and get a full time hitting coordinator, as they've done, with the pitching coordinator the last year here. That's fine and dandy, but I hope they got to put somebody in that role that knows what they're doing. And as Sox fans, our patience is thin, so you want to see results pretty quickly. Uh, the only other way to really do it is to go on. I mean, we've talked about this so many times in the past, and I hate to run over the same ground over and over again, but they're resetting the payroll as we speak. And if Garrett Crochet and Luis Robert go in the offseason and they send Yohan Moncada off with a $5 million buyout, which I don't see any reason why they won't, we're looking at a extremely minimal payroll. And the only way to really get any proven talent is to go out and buy it. There are guys in the minor leagues that we all hope are going to do something. Most of them are a year or two away. We see Colson Montgomery. Everybody's down on Colson Montgomery right now. And I'm just going to say, again, I'm going to ask for everybody to be patient because he did move up rather quickly through the system. And he's still young. Give him time. If he doesn't pan out, he doesn't pan out. But I think it's still way too early. We're looking at, like you said, George Wolcott. Thank you, Howard, for bringing that up. He's their number 6 prospect. But
yeah,
I don't know if he's 2 or 3 years away. But maybe 2. It's just his thing is he's got to get that K rate down. I'd like to see him take some better pitches and drive the ball, as he can. But that's a whole nother story. But yeah, there's really not a whole lot of big offense in the minor league system. The only way to go out and get bats is to pay for them.
Can you try to make a crazy prediction? I'm putting you on the spot, and we might have to talk it out, and maybe we can get some help from folks in the chat. Can you put together a starting lineup, an opening day lineup right now? What it might look like?
What they have.
I'm trying
or
to.
are we talking about adding in possible free agents during the
I
offseason?
wouldn't even think free agents. What they kind of have right now. Could we put together? Could we field all positions with what they have right now?
Well, they can. I don't know that they'd be any better than they are right now.
Is Dominic Fletcher is Fletcher going to stay in right field for 2025?
So Dominic Fletcher, I mean, obviously we've seen what he can do defensively, and it's nice to have, whether he's a little bit smaller height wise than some of the other guys you see in the outfield. He can move. He can get to some balls and gaps and cut some balls down. He's got a great arm. He hits cutoff men like we have been dying for our right field.
That's big.
For
Yeah, that is important. Yeah.
He catches what he's supposed to catch. But I would love to see his bat come alive. I mean, 1 home run, this season, and his OPS is garbage, but I mean, yeah, I mean, if he can
I'm not
find a
saying
little
the
bit of a
team's going to
stick,
be. I'm not saying that anything's going to improve. I'm just like, do we have the guys right now? If nothing changed, can we put a team out right now in 2025 and kind of pencil it in?
yeah, pretty much the same team you got out there right now, minus Luis Robert Jr. and maybe you see Caro behind the dish.
Okay.
And maybe we get lucky and we see Elko.
So who's at third base then? Like who's at the hot corner?
Oh, somebody's going to be there. It's going to be either
Ramos,
it's going to be
Sosa.
Ramos or Vargas or Sosa,
Okay. Okay. So one
unless
of
they
those
sign
three.
somebody, which I doubt that's going to happen because I'm sure they feel like they have a third baseman somewhere in the system.
Okay. So we got a couple options there, which again, I would like them to pick a lane eventually. Who is going to be given a majority of the reps at third base? Stop this revolving door thing. Just give it to somebody, especially next year. What about shortstop? Are we seeing Colson Montgomery anytime soon?
I personally wouldn't. I would. You have to give him at least a couple months in AAA next year to see if he can,
Okay.
if he can kind of shake off what's happened to him this year. And he's shown some signs in the second half this season. He's still not looking great, but he's been better in the second half. And, he's got some things to work on. He's got a little bit of a hole in his swing, but that hole was not present before. Like people are acting like this hole in the swing is something that's always been there and it's just the pitching catching up to him. And that's not quite the case. His eye hasn't been as good as it normally was in the past. And, again, I don't think that has anything to do with pitching being that much better. I think it's a Colson Montgomery thing. So I'd like to see him get a little bit more time to work through his struggles.
Okay, so don't pencil Colson Montgomery in.
Not to start the season
as you're
anyway.
starting 2025 shortstop.
No, not to start the season. I would venture to guess you're going to see a combination of what we're seeing right now. Unless there are signings made in the off season, we're going to see a combination of what we're seeing right now. You're going to see Vargas, Sosa, Baldwin, those guys.
Lopez? I think Lopez is still
even
around for one
Jacob
more
Amaya.
year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Nicky Lopez, I think
Okay.
I think he's got one more. Is it an option year or was it a 2-year contract?
I think it's one more year. All right. So first base. We've touched a little bit on Vaughn, but you know what? In my gut, I'm just going to go with my gut. I think they stick with Vaughn. I think they're just going to stay with Vaughn.
You know what? Chances are they do just because he's a number 4 overall draft pick or what was it 3 4 3? I don't even remember anymore. 4, right? Because Nicky Nicky Two Strikes was the number 3 overall the year before or the year after. Anywho, I see people asking about who's. I believe it was Howard asked in the in the chat who's the closer. And I would have to venture to guess, like Ian says, there's a handful of guys. I wouldn't mind seeing Addison Coffey get a shot at it. One of our minor leaguers. There's a handful of minor league pitching that's pretty intriguing, whether it be starter or out of the bullpen. So yeah, I mean, there's on the pitching side of the ball, I think they're pretty good. It's where's the offense going to come from?
You got some arms. The bullpen, boy, we knew the bullpen was going to be absolutely awful heading into this season, and it's lived up to that. Probably going to be problematic once again in 2025. You're going to see little moves made by Getz. Nothing's going to shock anybody. They're going to be little fillers here and there, maybe guys that potentially could be flipped once again at the deadline.
Screw that. I think I better go all in on Soto right now. I'm sorry. Listen, we had the opportunity in 2018 when they reset the payroll then.
Yeah.
They reset the payroll and we were ready to roll. We were supposed to be rolling into our competitive window. And they went out and they pulled that garbage with Manny Machado. Supposedly didn't even offer anything to Bryce Harper when you had the opportunity to. And now looking back at what Bryce Harper got and the mega deals that have happened since then, Bryce Harper looks like a steal at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's always the crippling thing for a Sox fan is the limitations. You sadly know the limitation. It's not this fantasy of every off season. Look at the top of the free agents and look at how we can get better and look what we're going to do. no, like take your finger when it comes to that list and go all the way down to the bottom third. And even then might be a little too high. It's dejecting. It really is. You're going to see fillers, but if you think they were actually going to make a splash, they wouldn't be giving season ticket holders 10% off and advertising that they're slashing that in terms of finances because of what I think Boyer went on to talk about how it's been rough the last couple of years and essentially it's going to continue to be rough. So we're going to give you 10% off for your loyalty, or I'm assuming if you're actually looking to get into season tickets, which I am surprised about that. But to each their own. If you want to, if you love it live, and if that's your thing, absolutely. I just think that's a really tough ask.
I
To
think
to
the
sell
reason
that.
they're doing this whole, discounted tickets next year and rolling back the clock on some of the prices is they realize how many. I mean, it sounds like the amount of season ticket holders that have walked away the last two seasons has been significant, right? And then you look at the stands here the last few weeks. You look at any day game over the last 2 months, and unless it's a giveaway, the stands are looking pretty ugly. Your weekend games are your weekend games here in Chicago. They've always kind of attracted, even when the team is bad. But now we're getting into September, where tickets are going to start going for like $2-3.
Yeah.
And you can walk up to the gate and they don't have the whole 500 level thing anymore where you buy a 500 level ticket and you got to stay up there. I think them rolling back tickets could be a shot at just maybe getting folks back. It's not even about we're not going to do anything. I don't know if it
Hmm.
signals they're not going to do anything. I think they know that most of us they're assuming they're not going to do anything. I mean, you'd have to be a blind man and deaf man to not hear the fan base screaming that they feel like it's the same old around here. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Nothing's going to change until Jerry's gone or until the team is sold. And, I don't think that the front office is not getting that message. They're definitely getting that message. So how do you bring back any kind of money? You offer a little bit of a discount. If you can get a handful more season ticket holders on a discount like that, then you can kind of wipe out some of these $3 tickets at the end of the season. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I want to know who's taking that bait, who's jumping in, 'cause especially with season ticket holders, from what I understand, and you might get an extension, and I'm sure they'll let you. I've had those conversations with my rep over the years before I made my decision after last year. But it sounded like at the end of September, you needed to re up. They needed an answer from you, which I just think is absolutely unfair. You should have all the right in the world. The amount of money that you invest for season tickets, you should know the direction of the team. You should be able to have a sense of, the manager, the coaches, get a little bit of an idea of maybe what the offseason could look like. Now I know that's not how it works in the business world when they need to cover themselves and figure out what they're needing to do to fill in the gap, so to speak, in terms of tickets sold and all that kind of stuff. It just can't happen with the snap of your fingers in spring training if you let people wait that long. But I didn't when I got my season ticket package way back in 2017. It was early February. It might have been the day after the Super Bowl that I went over to the stadium to sign all the paperwork and finalize things. And so again, at that time, people kind of gave up on the Sox. There was a little bit of excitement because of Renteria coming in with, just kind of there's some new energy with after the sale, trade and everything. So
And they signed Manny Machado's brother-in-law. It was
yeah,
great.
John Jay and Yonder Alonso.
Yeah.
It was a huge offseason. So you could wait. You could let season ticket holders wait. You should get until maybe November or something. And I'm not saying that the Sox are going to do anything, but get a better sense of of what kind of maybe front office at least or executives they're bringing in.
I mean, give me a better sense of direction in anything. Like, and obviously right now, this is all just speculation on our part. And the team obviously doesn't give us much to talk about other than some of the dumb quotes that still seem to come from, you know, the front office and the dumb moves and the head scratchers. But, I don't want to say that we don't have anything to talk about. Obviously we do, but we just, you were talking about not having a direction for so long now. And every time it seems like they do pick a direction, and we're like, oh, hey, at least I see something like the beginning of this year. Well, you know what? We don't have any hitting, but they picked a direction and they went with defense. And then it only took you till like mid-April to realize, yeah, that was a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where's Maury? Where's Maury when you need him? And his lie detector tests. The lie detector determined
Well,
that was
the
a
thing
lie.
about that, Danny, was okay, if that's the direction you want to go, kind of winning on the margins and kind of a scrappy type of team, and we're going to do things the right way, and we're not going to beat ourselves, and kind of grinders, back to those old grinder rules. And of course, the TWTW that we like to joke about. If you're going to play that, and that's how you think your team is going to be assembled, well, then you have to be the best version of that. You can't miss, you can't make errors because you don't have the sluggers. You don't have the superstar talent. So whatever you're doing, you have to be the very best version of that to get anything out of it. To almost, I'm not saying you're going to equal, you know, premium sluggers in a monster offense, but if you're playing the brand of baseball that you think you could play at its best ability, I think you're absolutely going to have a better season than what they have right now. It's just too many things were going wrong right from the game. I mean, they were 3-22 to kick things off.
Yeah, pretty gross. Pretty gross indeed. And it was like almost instantaneous. You just saw what we could, expect for the rest of the season. And I mean, I held my breath, just hoping that things would work itself out, right? I was the guy who came out and said 74 at the beginning of the season. 70, I don't even know if we're going to get to half of that.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah. That's, so is there any part of you that, do you want to see the Sox blow past 120 losses?
At this point, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't think it really matters.
Yeah.
I and we kind of ran over this a little bit a few weeks ago, and I thought that might change over time, but no, I don't think it really matters. It's like it's. I look at it the same way as I look at it like a 1-run loss or a 10-run loss. Sure, the 1-run loss might have been more exciting, but it was still a loss. I feel like that kind of feeds into the Jerry Reinsdorf philosophy of whatever that conference he was, and where he said, he, if you keep your fans interested in meaningful games at the end of the season, that's really what they want to see. Meaningful games at the end of the season. Well, what does that mean for a season like this? Because we are definitely not in meaningful games. Like, we can't even play spoiler to anybody right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I mean, we can, but that means you got to win a couple.
Yeah. I mean,
they
to
just
really
don't
go
look
on
like they're going to win at all.
No, I mean, I think there was a part I mentioned it, a couple days ago with Pat, but I think there was a part of me that said, well, maybe this is really going to dig into Jerry, and this is on his White Sox professional resume of he was the owner when the team had the worst
The
record of all time.
orchestrator.
Yeah, really allowed all of this to happen, right? And now I don't think it really matters. I honestly, in my mind, he doesn't care, despite what everybody will tell you. And Pedro was the king of that, blowing smoke and how much Jerry cares about the fans and winning and all of this kind of stuff. And But the fact that the Sox now, this 2024 team, they've lost over 100 games and it's going to continue to go. And I do think they're going to get past 120, but I've kind of been apathetic about that, much like I have with a lot of other things with this team. They've collected back-to-back 100 loss seasons. Okay. And that's just in the first time in the history of the 125 history. So that in itself is nasty.
Has there been any other team to ever do that?
That's a good question.
Has there ever been a single team that's, and I'm going to have to do some digging after the show, or if anybody's in the chat and has got
Baltimore
got a wild hair.
Baltimore
has there
been
any other team that's got 2 back-to-back 100 loss seasons?
There has to have been.
It seems like there has to have been.
Yeah. I feel
it's got to be far and few between, right?
Yeah, there have been some teams that just had a couple really rough patches, but and for the White Sox, it just never happened, which just tells you how monumental this really is. So we're not going to forget about this era anytime soon.
If you're a cardiologist and you're in the chat, just go ahead and check out now.
That could be a perfect way to end it. That could be a perfect way to end it, Danny. Put a button on things and go right back to the cardiologist as Danny fires up another cigarette. We're over an hour here, and this is always fascinating to me. How we can chop up this team, and it's a lot of it's venting, and it's a lot of it's therapeutic, and some great people in the chat tonight. It's always. I love the comments. I love the Tuesday night chats. But, do I feel any better? It's good to vent. It's good to get some things off your chest. Hasn't really changed much. It's just frustrating. I guess the vagueness of what's going on with this organization.
Yeah, agreed. 100% agreed. Again, it just goes back to what we were just talking about. I'd like to hear of a direction that actually sounds like a good direction. Yeah. One that sounds like, hey, we're actually going to try to maybe, win sometime in, I don't know, maybe my lifetime. Like, give me that.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, Danny, you have a good time in Vegas. Enjoy yourself, but come back safe. I want to thank everybody for jumping in, for your comments, for your support. You can find this podcast absolutely everywhere. Subscribe to the FutureSox YouTube channel. Find FutureSox on Twitter X at FutureSox. There's so much great content. Danny Miller is at Danny Miller FS. I am Nick Murawski at Nick_GGTB. Appreciate the conversation, Danny. Folks, appreciate you joining us in the chat. And until next time, I should say, as always, go Sox.